Hi, I'm Allie with the Potomac Bead Company, and I'm going to show you a different way of achieving a tubular peyote stitch with these SuperDuos. It's going to show a little bit less thread in between. This one here was done with a traditional tubular method for the peyote, and you can check out some of our other videos to learn how to do that. What you could do to cover up the thread a little bit more is to use 15-0 or 11-0 seed beads between all of the SuperDuos. What I'm going to show you is a different method. So this one here we're building in a tube. We're starting at one side and we're going to build the tube and go round and around in a circles. What we're going to be doing with this one here is I'm going to be building it lengthwise. I'm only going to use 10 beads at the start, but what you would do is string onto your thread and your needle. You're going to string on as many beads as you want to for the length of your bracelet. So if you need to, you can do it 7 inches long, and that's going to get you the length that you want. So it fits in the screen. I just have these 10 beads on my thread and on my needle. So keep in mind that if you were doing this to do a full bracelet length, you're going to do about 7 inches worth of your SuperDuos on at the start. I'm using the SuperDuos in the Jet Picasso color, a size 10 English beading needle, and 0.006 wildfire beading thread. You can use 0.008 or 0.006. What I'm going to be doing is using a traditional peyote method, and I also have 11-0 seed beads here. They're going to go at the ends, so you're not going to use that many because they're going to be just at the very ends. My thread is coming out of this SuperDuo here, going from left towards right. I'm going to go now from right to left. And that's going to just have the seed beads sit right on the side. I'm going to pull nice and tight so they sit on the side there. And that's going to cover up my side so I don't see a lot of the extra thread there. I'm going to skip the next bead, and I'm going to put on one of my SuperDuos and sew through the next SuperDuo that's in line. So I'm skipping one, sewing through one. And that's just how you do normal peyote also. What's going to occur then is you're going to have them sitting in a zigzag. You can see the beads already want to lay in that line anyway. And on goes another bead. Sew through every other bead or the one sticking up, and that's going to get me that peyote look. You can also check out, this would be the same as our snakeskin peyote, so if you check out our snakeskin bracelet with our SuperDuos, this is going to be the same exact design, except we're going to change it up a little bit and kind of round it out at the end to get that tubular shape. Now that I've gone through all of my beads, I just have one that's sticking out here. I'm going to add one more bead to my row. So each row is going to have 5 beads that are going onto it because I started out with 10. At the side of that bead, I'm going to add my 2 seed beads in my 11-0s just to cover up the side and go back through that same bead going from right to left. Pull nice and tight. And keep in mind again, this is only 1 inch wide. Normally it would be 7 inches. So you'll go down that line a lot faster. It's actually going to have you make your bracelet a lot faster than the tubular peyote, just doing this regular flat peyote, and then we're going to round it out. Again, another thing is you won't see as much of the thread. When you do start your 7-inch section, you want to make sure to do an even amount of beads. So I've continued sewing so that I'm making my bracelet wider basically, because this is the length, remember, and this is going to be the width of the bracelet. Eventually when I turn this over and so I make a tube out of it, it's actually going to be the circumference of that tube and how big it is. One thing you want to make sure is that you're doing an odd count. So if I look here, my ends are matching up, and that's not going to work when I roll it over and fold it up. So I have on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows here. What I want to do is put on a 6th row of my beads, sewing through the first hole of, putting on the first hole of the SuperDuo through the second hole of the row before it. And then I'm going to show you how I roll it over and kind of sew it up. And this is really fast moving because you're not having to go up and down like you would the tubular peyote. So this is going to be a little bit quicker moving. I'm going to put on my last bead, and I'm still going to attach my 11-0 seed beads onto the end of this to cover up my thread. And also we'll use them for another usage to put on the clasp. I'm going to make that nice and tight. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll my project over. So keep in mind, normally this would have been 7 inches long. It's going to be a little bit easier to hold. I'm going to roll the project, and this is one that you don't want to hold nice and tight, because if you hold it too tight, your thread's going to snap. So I don't want that thread really showing at all. And how I'm going to do that is take my needle then right into that turned over section and just sew up and get all of the empty holes. And I'm sewing basically from right to left and zigzagging right along. You can see my needle. I got one more to grab. So I've gone through the empty holes of both sides of my SuperDuos. And I'm going to pull, and that's going to get me that tubular look. What I need to do then is figure out how to put on the clasps to this bracelet. Because it's not like the other bracelets where you can easily seam when you're doing the tubular peyote. You can easily seam this together to the openings that are occurring. With this one, it's going to be a little bit harder to make it nice and seam together in a line. You can do it, and what it's going to actually appear to look like then more so is this other bracelet that we have. It's called on the roll-on SuperDuo bracelet. When I'm coming out of the top of the SuperDuo here, because I can't really make a roll-on really easily because I have my thread showing and my seed beads, I'm going to add 2 more seed beads that are going to go right along the SuperDuo just to mimic the other sides. Sew through my beads, and because I'm using darker beads, the black thread, you're really not going to see much of it. I'm going to go up to another level here of my beads, sewing in between them so you don't see the thread. And then what I can do is I can put on a cap or a cone, and I can just pick up the seed beads that are on the side here, go in between one, pick up that seed bead, go through the other seed bead that's there, fill in the holes with 2 more seed beads, and just basically sew along that line. Then I can pick to put on a clasp, or I can put on a magnet, or I can even sew on some caps onto this empty space. We have a ton of videos showing how to put on clasps, and about at the end of every video I kind of do a little bit of how to finish it off. With this one here, what I would do most likely is sew a little bead or a button in place. To do that, what I would do is sew my bead or button and add it on to it. And this bead's going to be a little bit bigger than I would need to. On one side I'll do the loop. So I'm just going to take my extra 11 O's here, put a bunch on my thread and string, and I could attach a clasp to this as well. I'm going to go to the other side of my little tube here after adding some seed beads onto my thread and my needle. And this is just going to make a little loop. That little loop there, then I can attach a clasp to, I could attach a button to, I can make this bigger and make that actually be my final loop. But this is going to be a little way to make this roll-on bracelet a little bit more detailed, or a faster way to show less thread to make one of the tubular peyote bracelets with the SuperDuo. So it's just another method to use, another way to use those SuperDuos. You can see this way they're going up and down, and this method they're going to go laying right next to one another. So it's 2 different ways to do the bracelet. Because these are up and down versus these laying next to one another, you use more beads when you're doing it just the straight peyote method rather than the tubular, and that's why you're also going to see less of the thread. So have fun playing with the SuperDuos. Check out a bunch of our different videos and classes using the SuperDuos, and hopefully you get to visit one of our locations, like us on Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.